what we wanted to talk about in this one was you've noticed, Liani, that they are playing both sides. You put up an interesting tweet, which was this. So what's going on here then?
Well, you've got Serco, who are kind of not controlling the borders, but they're there at the airport.
But I mean, they are kind of employed to do border security.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So
Right.
with our tax money.
Yes.
And then what they're also doing now is they're calling landlords and offering them 5-year contracts to house these asylum seekers that are crossing through the channel. So what they're doing is they're taking, obviously, our money, our taxpayers' money. The government are then handing it to Serco and saying, right, call the landlords. So they're going to offer you a 5-year contract to rent your property to them. They're going to take care of all the maintenance and all the repairs, which is a huge expense for landlords. They're going to give you no commission that you have to pay your estate agent for when you rent your property out. So it's all in all, it's to a landlord would be quite a lucrative deal. And
Yes,
I mean, the government are also really pressing landlords. We've got high mortgage rates, but then they also changed the tax relief laws for, taking your mortgage off your taxes, all of this kind of stuff. So landlords are under a lot of pressure at the moment. So if they see something like this come along, they might want to take it. And obviously what's that going to do? It's going to reduce the inventory for British people and also legal immigrants that have come here legally that have jobs here. So, rent's a fortune, mortgages are a fortune. People need to rent because they can't afford a mortgage, and then they can't rent because Serco are taking a load of the inventory.
But the fundamental point being is that they're earning from housing the immigrants who get past the border, and they're also paid to control the border.
Exactly. So this is what I mean. It's win-win, and this is the problem, isn't it? There's so much money now with illegal immigrants coming in. So and then they look after some of the prisons as well, don't they? So when they get banged up,
Oh, they kind of win also. Well, let's drill into that before
something a bit more than a conflict of interest, then, right?
Yes.
You could describe it as a cabal, perhaps.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Don't be a conspiracy theorist.
Well, do we know? Are they a limited company?
Yeah.
So they've got shareholders.
Yeah. Oh, they're publicly listed. Yeah.
I mean, Rupert Soames was involved at one point.
Yeah. Oh, so Churchill's grandson,
I think. Yeah, he was involved at some point. So it's worth looking into the shareholders as well. So, it's definitely a conflict of interest.
So before we dig into that, I'll just quickly mention that we've got a couple of jobs open. So we're looking for people who know about the technical stuff and the buttons and the cameras and all that kind of thing. So if you know about that sort of stuff, we're looking for a guy in London and a guy in Swindon. So do get in touch if you know about the button stuff. So... Right, so Serco, yes. So this is this is the sort of pitch that they've got, calling all landlords. We're looking for landlords, investors, and agents with property available in the Northwest Midlands, east of England. Right, so they're not doing this in the South, which I quite like. So there is
interesting,
that.
Isn't it?
Yes, I don't know why, but okay. So, but at least they're doing it in the North. Here we go. Let's scroll down. So Serco provides asylum accommodation support services in the northwest of England. Blah blah blah. Yep. We are responsible for 30,000 asylum seekers in an ever-growing portfolio of more than 7,000 properties. So they've already bagged at least 7,000 properties have come off the rental market.
No, exactly. And so we saw that a lot of the hotels were being taken over by these people before. Beautiful hotels, actually.
Yes.
People have their weddings cancelled and their bookings cancelled.
Oh, we've done segments on that.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, there's 2 hotels just up the road from here, both of them fully booked out. We've got bouncers on the doors and these sort of chaps coming in.
Yeah. So now let's move into the, kind of private sector. And along with this, you have, I've got estate agent friends who have clients now seeking big buildings in order to turn them into multiple occupancy homes, which is basically where you can have multiple families living in one small house, split the rooms up into separate rooms. It used to be for student accommodation or say like the NHS, but now it's like they're handing them over to Serco as well.
Well, and even when I was a student, there wasn't really an abundant. I mean, there's always that sort of crush at the beginning of the year when you had to go out and find a property.
Yes, yeah.
But it's going to be even less viable if you've got, tens of thousands of asylum seekers turning up.
And 7,000 properties taken off the market for, our own people.
Yes, it's not uncovered. Oh, no, let's here we go. Yeah, so prospective land. And in fact, we got your bit that you mentioned. Oh, we use a quote. Over the 3 years I've now worked with Serco, I've increased my housing stock with the assistance of Serco. I mean, so it's a great deal for the landlords because they've got a nice secure revenue stream.
Right.
So they can then get more properties. But yeah, so this is what you were saying, wasn't it? So it's a 5-year lease with no voids. Now, if you're a landlord, it's like voids is one of your worst things.
Yeah, so tenant hands in their notice. It could be empty for like, a month where you have to, fix it up, change the carpet, repaint the walls, get it all, up to scratch again. And so, then they've got to look for a new tenant. You might have tenants that say, oh, while I'm in here, I don't really want people coming through looking. So you could have empty periods.
And it really sort of screws up your return on investment calculation. If
totally.
That's off. Rent paid full on time every month with no arrears. So again, sort of really attractive for landlords.
Exactly, especially after what happened during COVID, when people were given kind of a bit of a period, a big grace period, a very, very big grace period with which not to necessarily pay rents or have their rents lowered even.
And you might think, well, but if we get whatever it is, sub-Saharan or Albanian or whatever it is that sort of gets shoved into this place, they might not fully respect it. That there is that concern.
There's that.
But they throw in full repair and maintenance as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it is a great deal for the landlord.
Well, it's an amazing deal.
It just comes at the low price of destroying your own civil society.
Well, there is that, yes.
Betraying your nation. So if you're not worried about that.
Bills and council tax paid by Serco, periodic safety inspections and no fees. So it's like, just from a financial perspective, you'd kind of have to be mad as a landlord not to do this.
Right. I mean, I have a property that I rent out. I have a absolutely lovely tenant. He renews every year, but I still have to pay the estate agent that found it for me, like 150 a year to renew that contract. So here you go, no fees. And obviously it's much bigger if your tenant's moved out and you have to find someone else. That's what I think maybe a month's worth of rent they might take.
And just, I mean, talking of landlords I know, I mean, they typically like have multiple properties. I mean, you could have 5, you could have 50 or something. So it's very tempting for them, instead of having to do the work all the time, they can just say to Serco, okay, I'll get paid even more by you, total security, and then you deal with everything, and I don't need to worry about this again. So you can see why thousands of properties are just going, straight onto this thing. Yeah,
you can see that it's definitely happening. And then there's a lot of foreign investors doing it as well, because they're like, well, look at this. We'll just, they've got no skin in the game, have they? They don't care about the neighborhood of the house they rent. I mean, the house that I rent out is a house that I used to live in. So I know the neighbors, I know all the people.
You kind of care.
And I care who's in there and about those people. If you're just an investor from, and you're not even from the area, then you don't care, do you? You don't care if it completely destroys the area around because you've got all of this.
That was the sort of tough thing with the hotels, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because they started putting them in the really sort of nice hotels in these little holiday sort of towns and stuff, and the local economy kind of relied on the tourists coming in during the summer.
Coming in to pay for their dinners in the restaurants and the little shops, and
So it's not encouraging.
It does rely on a sense of morals, though, doesn't it, from the owner? Whether you're an owner of one of these hotels or whether you're a landlord, whether you've got a sense of morality, whether you actually care about the community in any real way. I think there's 2 types of landlords. I happen to be a landlord myself, but only one property, a small little flat. Okay, so I think there's landlords that own.
Have you done the deal?
No, of course not.
And you know what?
I didn't know it existed until just now.
And it's actually harder for us. Like I'm a small landlord as well. It's harder for us when we have all these rules put on us, especially from the government, and they make it. They diminish our rights and they give the tenants a lot of rights. It's harder for us when you're a big corporation that buys up all these properties. And it's your full-time job, and you've got these big lawyers to get people out and evict them if they don't pay their rent or whatever. It's much easier for these huge corporations that are doing it, or these big landlords with like 50, 60 properties, because they have everybody at their fingertips to do all of the necessary things. So for a small landlord, this could be quite appealing. And for an investor who doesn't care about the area, as I said, definitely.
Well, and you make a good point, because the government is kind of simultaneously kind of raising the rules and regs on one side to make it less appealing and more hassle to do it yourself, and while giving you a sort of an easy out, which is, you know, just do the immigrant thing, and then we'd be fine. What was your experience been?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think there's a couple of different types of landlords. There's those that have like a property empire, where they've got 10 or 50 things, and they never ever meet the tenants. They've got agencies that do all that for them. They don't care if they put a builder in and put partition walls up and cram 8 students or asylum seekers into one property. There's that type of person. Who usually, the cliche goes that they're sort of immoral, or just soulless. Don't care. Just whatever.
It's just a business.
It's just a business. Just whatever money I can make at the end of the month. And then there's sort of normal human beings who happen to own a property they're not living in, and they rent it out. I mean, I don't know about you, but mine is, you know, just sort of the rent kind of pays for the mortgage repayment.
Yeah.
Or not even that really, and it's one thing.
Yeah.
It's one thing. And so I sort of wouldn't dream of trying to cram extra students in there or extra asylum seekers in there or do something like this. Just wouldn't dream of it. You got one person in there that you kind of know, they've been there for a while, and you know they're not mad, they're not trying to rip the copper wiring out of the walls or anything. Good to go, that's fine, just let it tick over. But there will be lots and lots of people out there that bite the government's hand off for something like this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I say I'm a landlord, I also rent, right? And so I've got a landlord of my own.
Right.
And he's, as far as I can tell...
to the model then.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, the guy owns loads.
Yeah.
And just is always trying to put everything up and always trying to not pay for anything. And it's just 2 types of landlords, right?
Yeah.
Normal human beings and then sort of crazy money grabbers.
Yeah, my estate agents have said to me, they're like, "Oh, Lilani, you know, you could put the rent up this year." I'm like, you know, I really like this tenant, and I don't know that he can necessarily afford that. And I've done that before. And you know, if they've been a really good tenant, but they, like you said, I'm one of those other landlords that just want a nice person in there that's going to look after the property, and I'm not there to make, you know, invest and make tons and tons from, you know, the taxpayer, because ultimately this is the taxpayer's money, isn't it? This isn't
or borrowed.
yeah. Well, our grandkids' money, really, because ours is all gone.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of people who do this as well, because it's quite common for people to, you know, end up getting married or something, and then they rent out one of the properties or something, or, you know, or they're moving around, like more your situation or something.
Have you not got a bunch of properties?
No, I've never.
I would have thought you would have.
Well, no,
It's all in gold, is it?
Yeah, gold, and Bitcoin, and tech stocks, and all that sort. I think the reason is because unless you kind of got in on it years ago, the yields, well, it's what you said, which is it basically covers the mortgage.
Yeah.
So it's like being suppressed to the point now where the only way you make money is on capital appreciation of the property itself. But you can't earn money on the thing, and it's kind of easier to make money on.
And what's scary now is banks are actually allowed to become landlords. So, you know, it's going, they've, you know, they let that come in. So people moan about small landlords and say, "Oh, all landlords are really greedy." But actually, wait until it's the bank that's the landlord, and they've taken away the properties from us, the nice landlords, because we can't afford it anymore because our mortgage rates are up here, and we've got all these repairs and maintenance because Serco is not paying us.
Because then it will be utterly faceless. Won't it? It will just be somebody on a spreadsheet somewhere is in charge of the properties, and they just do a deal with a letting agency or something on a nationwide basis. Be utterly faceless the whole way across.
But this is just really cynical, isn't it? I mean, come on, it's really cynical to use a sort of a government agency, or would you call it, what is Serco? Would you call it a
contract
third party
provider, or I don't know, service provider?
Right. To use that to sort of bribe landlords into flooding our country with asylum seekers.
Well, and
what is that?
Yeah,
what is that?
And it has a real impact, because I mean, look, I just picked on this. I mean, there's loads of ways I could come at this, but you know, this is a guy just pointing out that, you know, there's lots of homeless people who are there because of domestic abuse. So they're in a situation where they have had to get out of the home, and he sort of highlighted about 11,000 people in this category that he's looking at suffered domestic abuse at home. They had to get out, and they've ended up homeless because they just couldn't find rented accommodation. Now, of course, the numbers are actually much, much larger than that.
Yeah.
You know, it's increasingly a problem that people can't find, even when people have been shut out of the housing market for a while.
Yeah.
But now they can't even rent somewhere. and there's 11,000 real victims here.
And 7,000 homes taken by Serco.
Yeah, and I suspect it's higher than that now.
Yeah.
And if the government's doing it with Serco, they're probably doing it with somebody else.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so they're direct. And Alex, who we had on the show, was it last week or week before? Week before. He made this sort of excellent point that, well, actually, the British population is falling.
Yeah.
So if there's a housing shortage, it's because of this immigration problem. Because otherwise, it just wouldn't be the case. Rents would be going down. It's a bit worrying that this is an entirely manufactured issue from sort of start to finish.
Something happened in the late 90s.
Well, I mean,
and now demand outstrips supply.
I wanted to pick up more on the sort of the timing thing, actually, because a friend of mine had made this point. It's this is the sort of level, and yes, you're right. There is that sort of big jump thing that happened there in the late 90s, the sort of Blair era. But I mean, even then, it wasn't super crazy.
No,
it was sort of a couple of 100,000 people a year were coming in. But this is really interesting. Look what happened here. So 2016, 2017, we had the Brexit vote, and as soon as that happened, they thought, okay, got to be on best behaviour here. We're not gonna roll because we're gonna try and cancel the Brexit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take immigration, and look how low immigration went when they were trying to convince us that you don't want to do any of this Brexit stuff.
Yeah.
Went down to below 100,000, which was, well, you haven't seen that since before Tony Blair. And the moment that they realised they'd lost Brexit, they decided to punish us. So this mass immigration is basically a punishment for Brexit. And you just look at it's parabolic.
Yeah, very, very conscious, deliberate decision, as far as I'm concerned. It's surprising to ever see the line go down.
And it's interesting that why it happened as well. It's because they were trying to convince us that immigration isn't a problem.
It does also show that it's possible for it to go down.
Yes.
If there's the political will to make it go down, it can happen. Because there's this argument, isn't it? You just can't do it. It's just how the world is now. You just will be flooded by hundreds of thousands of people every year, and that's just the inevitability.
And let's see what would happen if they didn't get benefits. Because when I had to move to America the legal way, I actually was married to an American. They had to look at all his bank statements and make sure that he could actually support me should I not work. He would have to be able to support me. And there was no way that I could claim any kind of benefit or he'd be liable for it. So what would happen if there were no benefits for these people, coming in? There shouldn't be. They shouldn't.
It's kind of weird that they did that, and you just had an open border with Mexico. That's a bit odd, isn't it?
It is weird, but it is weird. And I can't believe that they don't have a wall up, and there are areas where it's closed, but obviously you can sneak through but the scary thing about it now is actually, if you speak to a lot of Mexicans, anyone that's come there illegally anyone that's come there legally doesn't want illegals because they don't want the illegals taking their jobs. There's loads of Mexicans working all over the place, and you speak to them in Los Angeles like I did when I lived there. Like, no, we don't want the illegal ones coming over because they'll take our jobs, So they also don't want illegal immigration. And the ones coming over the border, they're not even Mexican anymore. They're like, Chinese, everything. Middle Eastern, African, and it's like, how did you even get to Mexico in the first place to be able to cross over?
Yeah, I mean, I knew a guy who was, what was he? He was going from, I think he was going from Africa to El Salvador, and he was flying first class, and he looked around in his first class cabin, and it was a bunch of guys in really rough t-shirts they're all carrying a plastic bag with their possessions. And he thought, this is a bit odd. And so he started speaking to a few of them, and most of them didn't speak English, but they're all basically just a bunch of Africans that had been scooped up, put on first-class flights, and sent out to El Salvador, where they could then begin their journey into America. So somebody is funding this stuff somewhere.
Definitely being funded.
Somebody. Yeah. Don't ask who. Don't notice that happening. But yeah, I might do a bit soon about Secretary Mayorkas. Do you know him?
No.
Alessandro Mayorkas, he's head of Homeland Security in America.
Oh, okay, yep.
And he's supposed to be in charge of, amongst many other things, the borders. And he's just completely failed, a complete dereliction of duty to do his job, his oath of office. And so all the Republicans in the Senate and things saying, well, wait, that's that's a dereliction of duty. You should be, or we're going to impeach you and remove you from office. And Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats are just like, yeah, no, because they control the Senate. So they're just like, yeah, no, we're not going to have any of that.
So this is the other side of it. So as well as providing the housing, if you get past the border, Serco are also providing the sort of security of the border. We've got a lovely little diet. In fact, we let's play this video because it sort of makes the point that we are doing a sterling job on making. And look, there's a little image of a scanner at a border and everything. Let's watch what they have to say. Can you do the thing, John?
Serco is a leading provider of immigration services. From border control to detention centres, we work closely with governments to protect borders and sensitively manage immigration.
Not that well, obviously.
Our people show compassion and respect to those entrusted to our care throughout their time with us.
Oh, that's good.
We are there for those in the community while their asylum claim is processed. Whether it be accommodation or transport, our dedicated staff have cared for some of the most vulnerable people in our communities since 2012.
Like young girls and Watchdale.
We also work to help integrate those people into communities with a range of services, programs, and partners. Where possible, we provide continuity of care to develop trust and reassure those we're looking after. We provide recipients with temporary, needs-based support while they're awaiting a government decision. We also provide secure detention services for government immigration departments. Through both design and close working with specialist partners, we make the centres as comfortable and engaging as possible for those in our care.
Okay, but I mean, just that line at the end, we make our detention centres as comfortable, as engaging as possible. If you broke illegally into, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or something, would it be their priority to make your prisoners comfortable and as engaging as possible? I mean...
Yeah, absolutely not. It would be hell, wouldn't it? It would be absolute hell.
I think they just gun you down on the beach. Wasn't there? I'm not even joking. There was some boats came across, what would it be, the Red Sea, from the Horn of Africa to like the Hijaz to sort of the western coast of Arabia. And I think they just opened fire on them.
Yeah.
I think that was.
And then they didn't put out a little video with soft music saying, we make our machine guns as engaging as possible.
Yeah, it's so nice, isn't it? We're the infrastructure that facilitates you being replaced in your own ancestral homeland.
Yes.
With our money. With our money.
So, so just rounding off on this, I thought what I'd do is I'd ask the AI about this one. So I asked the AI, and a large outsourcing business is paid to protect a country's border. It is also paid to house the people that get past that border illegally and house them. It makes substantially more money per illegal immigrant from housing them, from deterring them. Is this system optimized? And it's quite interesting because the AI reckoned that was a misalignment of incentive, and it would promote potentially unethical situations with a profit motive. So if the AI can figure it out, it would be nice if... the chaps in Westminster could...
I think they know. I think it's all intentional. It's
it's a
intentional, intentional destruction of our society and money in their pockets.
And people are getting paid off to do this.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's quite...
Yeah, I just simply don't... I don't buy the angle that it's incompetence.
No.
That they're accidentally doing this day after day. Accidentally failing to let the Royal Navy police the channel or whatever it is. Oops, forgot again to do anything about it today. It's just... Come on.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as Lads Hour, this episode on the Fallout universe. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.